the lane. 15-10. Touchdown, Chargers.
You think we're tired? We're not tired. Day three at the Combine, Chargers Weekly, your third podcast of the week, as always, joined by Matt Money Smith. And Money, another gem of a pod coming up.
Yeah, and we're going to have a pod tomorrow. So
breaking news.
Breaking
Four
news.
pods
We're going to end
week.
up doing 4. We got a lot of friends here at the Combine, and they're all being very generous with their time. So we're going to take advantage of that. If they're good with us, then we're good with them, and we're very excited about pushing forward today. 2 of our absolute favorites. We start with Nate Tice and Mina Kimes today, and then tomorrow we'll get our friend Brett Coleman, who does a lot of work with the Chargers, and Matt Miller, who of course is doing a ton of stuff as a draft scout for ESPN. But today, for people that aren't familiar with Nate, I hope you are, because he does incredible work over at The Athletic. He's someone that played at Wisconsin in the Big Ten. Of course, his father, Mike Tice, longtime, one of the best O-line coaches in the history of the league, and a great head coach while he was doing it for a while as well. And Nate's just got an incredible eye for talent, breaking down film and making it digestible for people that might not be used to stuff like that.
Yeah, and obviously Mina coming in here, she's here with NFL Live for the next couple of days.
Yeah.
It was just a fantastic conversation with her as well. We'll start with Nate, though, and you may see a resemblance, right?
Yeah, we'll plant a little seed for you. So you may want to make sure, if you're just doing this audio only, to work your way over to the YouTube production or Chargers.com, where we have the video posted as well.
Potential resemblance. We'll see if you see it. Here's Nate. All right, let's keep it rolling with another great guest. Nate Tice, The Athletic, joins us. And, Nate, this has been so fun for us because we typically do this podcast, just me and Money, yapping about the Chargers. We get to pick the brain of so many intelligent people in the world of football.
Smarter than us.
And Nate is certainly up there. Tell me what this week is like for you, man.
Oh, long. No, it's good. It's for me. It's getting in. We have to get in pretty early in the week, but this week is always interesting because I'm always like, all right, these guys aren't working out till late in the week, but then you forget about the people business part of this.
Yes.
And it's the convention. It's the convention for football. So it's great to see a lot of friends and all that, but also just like, hey, I like this guy. What do you think? And actually getting to talk off record on that stuff. So for me, that becomes really rewarding. But a lot of my work comes from just watching film anyways, so it's kind of a give and take of that. Like that, it's a different itch I'm scratching than what I usually do when I'm layered up in my office and my sweat. Actually, the same sweater I wear every day anyway.
Exactly.
But at least I shaved. Yeah. At least I shaved this time. Usually I got a little scrappy.
You're bringing the office
beard.
to Indy.
Yeah,
right?
That's it. A little scraggly beard than normal, but no, it's been going great.
I want to get this out of the way immediately. This is the first time that I think we've ever met. I feel like it might be, but I've always heard that Nate does have a strong resemblance to a certain number 10 that plays for the Chargers. So for the people that might be listening, I'm sure you get it, but he does have a bit of a resemblance to our Justin Herbert. So for the folks that don't want to
ladies and gentlemen, this is actually Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
exactly. But we're just going to talk a lot of offensive line.
He scouts prospects, offensive linemen. Yeah, that's exactly.
Really involved this offseason.
I've gotten Stafford before. And that's a scraggly beard and all that, and maybe it had a little bit of a jowls going on. So it was like that was
just
Stafford.
a mix of both LA quarterbacks.
But I'm glad I'm getting compared to quarterbacks again, because when I got really big for a little bit, and everyone's like, "So you used to play line, right?" And I'm like, no, I was a quarterback. And it was like I got to start hiking or doing some cardio.
Right, exactly. Yoga.
Let's get receiver and quarterback comparisons again, not left tackle or right tackle.
Well, let's talk about protecting you, Justin Herbert. You obviously do a lot of O-line work. The podcasts are great. You do with Robert and obviously everything that you guys are doing over The Athletic. But a lot of people are pointing to offensive, line, center, guard, tackle, everything for this particular new coaching regime. What you watch at Michigan, the way that they want to play, the way that Harbaugh wants to play, how does this class stack up? And let's say you either stick at 5 or you're able to trade down. What would you be looking to do there?
I love the trade down option for them, because I do think the Chargers have several holes and it's a great opportunity too in this draft, because I do think these positions there, even if moving down slightly, you can still find a blue chip type of prospect at tackle, or I know a lot of fans are saying receiver, but at the tackle position, because there are the Olaf Fashanus from Penn State, Joe Alt from Notre Dame, J.C. Latham from Alabama, Amarius Mims from Georgia, who I'm really high on, even though he's only played at limited snaps. But when you watch Harbaugh, even Stanford, even San Francisco 49ers, and then now Michigan. He's building through the trenches. That's what he's going to do. He wants beef. he wants to run the ball and commit to that, and also protect the quarterback. How did I get hurt last year? It's like
Right.
that, and so let's keep him upright and let's let him play all 17 games. So that's where I see that option is perfect here, because I consider Fashanu and Alt as true blue chip top 10 type guys. And honestly, I consider Latham and Mims even close to that. So even if there's a trade down option as well. Going into the whole left tackle, right tackle thing, Slater played right side in college a little bit. So like if you do want to move a former All-Pro over to the right side, there's that. But I just think it's like just get your best 5 out there. And if you draft a guy that was on the left side and he has to play the right side, you have 6 months to train that. If they're a good enough athlete, it should work. So I think sometimes it's like, oh, we just got to get beef. Here this year, it's actually there's premium beef. There's choice.
Yes,
there's
USDA choice.
Yes,
There you go.
there's choice stuff this year, and that's why I think they're actually set up pretty well.
We talked to Lance Zierlein yesterday about just the top 4 tackles in this draft and how it's kind of like whatever your flavor is.
Yes.
Based on what the Chargers have, and let's say you just stick with Rashawn on the left side, what do you think makes the most sense with what Jim and company like to do offensively?
Oh, man. I think Fashanu, because of his size, he's a little thicker, but Joe Alt from Notre Dame has some good movement skills. He's a former tight end and everything, but his flavor is a little different than me, than what Harbaugh would like, because he is more of a finesse tackle and a really good pass protection, more of a zone blocker as opposed to what I think Harbaugh likes to run a gap scheme, a lot of at-you runs. So I think a little more physical, a little bit more size like Fashanu, or even Latham from Alabama, who's literally built like a globe. I'm really excited to watch him this week because he's big and he doesn't look like a tackle because of his body type, but he moves really well. And he plays on the right side. And so that's a natural transition thing that makes sense. And same with Mims from Georgia, plays on the right side. Mims is an absolute freak. You'll never see a more impressive offensive tackle prospect.
He just doesn't have reps, right? That's the
he
issue.
Has 8 starts,
Yeah.
or 9 starts. He's almost like an NBA prospect that was like, Kyrie Irving was number 1 pick. He played like 11 games, or like a European prospect we've barely seen. That's what he more is like. And usually you don't get that at tackle. Usually it's a guy that started for 30 games and all that. So he's just such a different type than we've ever seen. But his upside's probably it might be higher than any of these other guys.
When you say different type, what do you mean?
Just a all-world freak, but also
just a freakish athlete.
But also just the lack of starts. There's usually
I got you.
Yeah. You don't usually see a tackle drafted this high that only has 8 games played or 9 games played. Like usually these guys, like I said, has more experience. So you don't usually, if that guy has a limited starts, they're 3rd round guy, 4th round type of guy, not a potential top 12 guy. But I think Mims has that potential, and he played on the right side too.
Right.
So there's a little benefit match with the Chargers.
It's funny, like the one name he didn't mention. I'm trying to remember who it was that came on first. It's for some reason offensive line is so different than everywhere else. Where somebody has, for Lance it was Latham. Who was it that had Fuaga? They were like Fuaga's the right tackle. It's over. You run the ball. It's violent.
I like Fuaga, and I have more of a late 1st round grade on him. Like it's splitting hairs, but but compared to other guys, maybe a half tier. His pass protection stuff, I think that he still has work to do. I know a lot of people like his run ability, his ability in the run game. I'm not as high as others on that. I think some people see some finishing that he does well, and he goes, oh, he's great in the run game.
Right.
It's like, it's like not as much as maybe I thought. But he's still great, a very good prospect, I should say. Also play on the right side as well. But he, to me, is really more 5, maybe even 6. Because then you get Fontenot, the left tackle from Washington, who I would give a shot to play a right side on the right tackle. I think he actually has good movement ability. He just doesn't look like a tackle. He's like 6'4". He's a little shorter. But he's a technician. He's strong. He's got good feet. Or bump him inside to guard. I know a lot of people like him at guard, but I'd still give him a shot at tackle. I like him a little bit more than Fuaga. But that, again, we're down onto 6 guys that are all legit top 20 guys to me. And then there's cool kind of project-y type guys like Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, and then so you're getting into that and
right tackle as well for Guyton.
Right tackle Suamata from BYU. That's another kind of interesting.
He's like a big freak too, right?
Freak, huge 5-star prospect, all that stuff. Yeah, he was an Oregon guy, went to BYU, very freaky. Another guy that doesn't have a lot of tape. He does, but not as much as some of these other guys. But then those guys sometimes I've seen in other drafts. Those guys are being like tackle 2 because there's not this much talent, but.
Right.
Here, those guys are 7, 8. And that's an interesting tackle class.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because we don't know the true opinions of these front offices. Right. And we'll start at quarterback because you just did an article on Jade Daniels. Mm-hmm. And I think the consensus,
you really want us to push that, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Make you the most popular guy around town.
Washington fans are really happy with me right now.
I'm sure. So the consensus, it seems like, is 3 quarterbacks going to go 1, 2, 3. So what the Chargers are hoping, I'm sure, is that there's a fourth quarterback or one of these 3 fall to 5.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think can change here from the combine to draft day with these quarterbacks and kind of how that first 5 shakes out?
Absolutely. The interview process is just so huge. They're finally getting these guys in front of decision makers. They can try and rattle them if they have scripted answers. Hey, you sucked on this play. Just really push them and see it. Is this our guy? So I think there's some confirmation bias where guys are going to go, I already like this guy. Now I love him. Or I didn't like that guy. He had that one wrong answer in an interview. I hate him off the board. And that's what it's kind of like that ramps up. So I think just seeing people like Daniels, which, again, as Chargers, it's like that's good. You want –
Absolutely.
Yes. Marvin Harrison Jr. too? Yeah, build it up. But like that, to me, I have Drake May and Caleb Williams graded very highly.
You have May higher than Caleb.
Yes, it's 1A, 1B, but I do prefer May a little bit more. Yeah, in 10 years, I've like officially scouted guys doing the process I do now. Like it's Trevor, May, and Williams in some shape or form are the top 3 guys. Trevor Lawrence are the top 3 guys I've ever scouted. I truly believe that. But I think Daniels is a full tier below, where he's more of like a late first rounder. So like. This is why Washington fans aren't happy with me right now, because and Patriot fans are going like, no, this is our guy, right? And I kind of threw some cold water that with my article. But having said that, that's me. There might be teams. I mean, Bill Belichick just came out. I know he's not with the team right now, but he came out and was just like, Daniel's always so explosive, all this, that. You don't know what these guys are going to prefer.
What was he before the season? Like like fourth rounder?
Fourth rounder. And I liked him. It's just that he has a lot of size is the number one thing. He doesn't work over the middle, which is always a huge red alert for me. The comparison I've started making is that's like a basketball player that doesn't shoot threes. You better be awesome at other things. You must have a great arm outside. You must create a lot. He does create a lot, but the guys that the statistical profile that I've looked at and just watching on tape too, how he attacks, he plays a lot like Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, even Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has fallen off a cliff as his athleticism has kind of dwindled. Jalen Hurts stopped running the ball last year, and the offense kind of fell apart. And Justin Fields still has issues throwing the ball over the middle. And Fields, those guys are all – I mean, Russ is 215. Justin Fields is 230. Hurts is 230. Those are big guys. Daniels is 200 pounds. Maybe. Give or take 5 pounds. It's just there's not a lot of historical kind of data to point that this succeeds.
Right.
The only other guys under 205 that have succeeded since 2000 modern football is Kirk Cousins, 1 year of Aaron Brooks, and 1 year of Jeff Garcia. It's like and that's a fourth round pick, undrafted free agent that played in Canada, not a top 3 guy.
Right.
And so to me, that's red alert. Still have a late first rounder because the guy can run a 4.38 or whatever, but there's just a lot more detriments to him that I think people have kind of expounded on.
When you say the middle, like that's where J.J. McCarthy excels and why they think this is going to be a really good week for him. The interview process. Could you see him being a top 5 pick?
Yeah, I would say top 10. Again, I have him graded closer to Daniels, more like an early second, late first kind of guy. But teams from certain offenses are going to love him. Teams being from the Shanahan offenses.
So Atlanta, Minnesota,
Raiders, because with their new with Getsy has some background on that as well. I don't think people are saying Broncos with him. This is not a Sean Payton guy to me. May is a Sean Payton guy to me. So that's where I don't see them, but that's where we just saw 3 teams right there, all in striking distance of that. So McCarthy rips the ball over the middle. He throws really well on the move. But again, I just brought up the size stuff. That applies to McCarthy as well. He's 195, 190. He might weigh 205 this week, but that's combine weight. That's another thing I have to bring up. It's a historical outlier, but he doing that stuff over the middle, doing that stuff throwing on the move. Daniels looks to scramble, or when he breaks contain, he looks to scramble. McCarthy breaks contain, he looks to throw. That is more realistic in the NFL. So that's why I think some teams watch him and go, that I like that translating better.
Nate, if we said Michael Penix had a clean injury history, like he was good to go, right? Where would he be in this draft if he didn't have all the injury history?
I still have like more of a third round grade.
Really?
On him.
Okay.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah, and again, throwing over the middle stuff. I know I'm just being a dead horse here, but it's true. It's like this is what works in the NFL. So he's not very efficient. He doesn't really throw with that anticipation. He's got plenty of arm zip. He likes to work on the outside, and when you don't have 3 potential top 50 wide receivers, makes me a little hesitant of like how that translates. They gave him no kind of pre-snap operation stuff for a guy that started 50 games, played all that time. That worries me a little bit too. It's like, okay, they didn't put a lot on his plate. You watch Justin this last year. You watch myself this last year.
Keep riding it, dude.
Yeah,
keep riding that horse.
Excuse me. Watch how much Kellen Moore put on his plate, and he's checking all that stuff. That's real. And I never really saw that with him, some of the pre-snap process stuff. Right. Thought he kind of got away with that. So I still have more like a third-round grade, and then you get into the injury stuff like that. So that's a little hurts too.
So you're certainly familiar with teams in the middle of the country. And I think of runners, and it feels like there's some good runners coming out of the Big Ten. Eckler's free agent. Joshua Kelly's free agent. We have no idea. Isaiah Spiller was a healthy scratch, right. a number of games. Just your thoughts on the running backs, and if you can think of one that would pair really well with this coaching staff.
Give us someone from the Midwest.
Yeah. Oh man, my two guys I really like. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, who I have a little bias towards.
That was the setup.
Yep.
There
and,
it was.
And Audric Estime from Notre Dame. And this running back class, I think, because we got spoiled last year with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. Even myself, I was like, it's not a good running back class. It's whatever. Then I studied these guys. I go, okay, actually, hold on a sec. Actually, there's some guys I'll take in the second round now. Those two, to me, fit what Harbaugh wants. Big guys catch a little bit, but they can run every type of run. Estime's got juice at 230 pounds. He can take any run to the house. He is a big back that's a little more finessey, though, more of a zone guy, outside, cut, and then go. I think Allen's got a little bit of everything, but he's going to be a little bit slower. Wait for him is going to be interesting to see, too. But those two, they match what I think what Harbaugh wants to do.
And I would assume Blake Corum is automatically
going to be considered. It's just Corum's got so much tread on his tires and everything like that. I love Corum as like a real high-end two, like the third down back. Hey, he's going to get 8 to 10 touches, but to spell a classic spell back. Yeah.
Jordan Reed of ESPN told us that Allen and Jim Harbaugh are a match made in heaven.
They are. Yeah. It makes so much sense. I mean, 240-pound back that can run everything. It's like, and he can take 20-plus touches if they want to roll that way. Those two make a lot of sense to me.
What about interior line? It seems like, again, we're hearing a lot of, Midwest, Big Ten, a lot of good interior. Penn State, that's right. Powers Johnson, there's an Oregon guy in there as well.
Yeah, Powers Johnson is kind of gotten a lot of pub. He's such an exciting prospect. You don't see a lot of 320-pound centers that move like that. I think he can play guard as well. He's kind of a wild horse, though. His hands are all over the place. Like, he's going to be more of his acclimation to the NFL is going to be a little harder. I think his upside's as high of upside you can have as a center. I think he's going to take a minute to get to there. He's new to the center position. That's a lot on a guy. Having said that, Graham Barton from Duke, I really like.
Can he play like every position?
He can. He plays tackle. I think he's going to be an interior guy, but I think he could put legit thing. I think he can play 4 spots, like where he can hey, after I play right tackle, I can play that for a game or two like that. But that's huge. Versatility is huge. Right. And then there's Zach Frazier from West Virginia, and this is why, even if I really like his tape, what this is all about versatility. He's a center only, just because of size and length and all that. So that's why maybe I have him as a third guy. But having said that, that's 3 center types that I consider late first rounders. That's more than we usually maybe have one. Yeah, so there's some I really like Barton for the Chargers, though. I really, if he's there early second or thing, or you do move back stuff, because just of his versatility, just because he can play center and he has experience at that. He's smart. I always love that quarterback to center. Hey, we're going to build together for 10 years kind of thing, and build that battery a little bit.
Right. My last question, and I'm going to address you as the franchise quarterback.
Okay.
Justin, we have to pick at 5. We have no trade options. Who are we taking? It's up to you. It's up to you, number 10.
I would say that guy from Penn State, Coach, I know you have a lot of experience with him, playing against him in the Big Ten, but Ola Fashanu is the one, Fashanu. I would say Fashanu. He, to me, is just he does so much well. Yeah. What did I say? I feel like I just got his name wrong. Did I just get his name wrong?
No, you didn't.
A little. Yeah, right.
Fashanu is right.
Yeah. But for Penn State, it's just I think he has a lot of traits that you want at the tackle position. Yeah. It's just the movement skills at that size. Still has room to grow. He had one real bad game against Ohio State that made me go, but then all his other tapes really good. I think if some of his people were saying that he's not good in the run game, I actually think he's very good in the run game. I think he finishes. I think he's got good techniques, but he's the guy to me that's a franchise tackle at left or right
Justin,
side.
we could get you Malik Nabers too. Just if think about it.
I just it's a hat on a hat for me.
Yeah.
And also if you're starting from it's inside out. Team building should always be inside out. I always look at receivers as the cherry on top.
Yeah.
That's that puts us over the top. That raises the ceiling. I think the Chargers in this weird, it's so crazy in a 12-month span, they've gone from we need the cherries on top to now I think we're rebuilding from the ground floor up. So that's why inside out for them.
So I'll finish with the least intriguing question from the folks that are listening, and that's linebacker. But I think about what happened to Baltimore when they traded for Roquan Smith and how different that became for the Ravens. And Kenneth Murray gone, probably likely that Eric Kendricks, at least very real possibility that he's cut candidate because of the cap compliance that they've got to figure out. So they got nobody. Yeah,
well, there's not a lot of linebackers in this draft.
Perfect.
I think my highest guy was the linebacker from Michigan, and
Colson.
Colson, thank you. I almost called him the running back.
Yeah.
I almost said Corum. Junior Colson, very smart, doesn't have a high-end ceiling. I think he's a limited athlete and everything, but I compare him a little bit to Nick Bolton from the Chiefs. But
Take that.
Yeah, exactly.
We know Nick Bolton well
can
with
play
the Chargers.
3 downs and can do everything very well, gets everybody set, and that they have experience with him. And I think the defensive coordinator, all the free will and stuff, he handles all that really well. He, to me, in the second round is actually the one guy I kind of like. That's a pretty dire linebacker class, though.
Yeah, definitely. Well, be sure to listen to all the pods, read all the articles. Nate_Tice is the social media feed that you can get all the links, I would assume. We know you're busy. Nate, thanks, man.
No, thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Nate.
Yep.
Another big-time guest, Mina Kimes of ESPN, joins us. And, Mina, you just got in town yesterday?
Yesterday, yes.
How's it been so far?
I'm still on West Coast time, but excited to be here. Excited to see some of these D linemen run. It's one of my favorite things at the combine. It's one of the things where you actually do get a lot out of being there in person and just seeing. I'll never forget seeing Jordan Davis run in person and just being like, wow, what was that? Yeah.
That was for me. That was Don Terry Poe.
Oh God. Yes.
Back in the days when we were on the field and. We had heard, this guy's pretty big. He's going to run fast. And like you said, when you see it firsthand, it is odd to see a man that large move like that.
And you see why it's so seductive.
Yes. Tavondre Sweat this year.
Oh, yeah. He's been hyping it, too,
yeah,
which I love.
Yes. You got to be careful with those. I never remember the guy's name, but there was a wide receiver out of Mississippi State. And we used to do the stream with.
I know exactly
Ike.
who you're talking about.
Do you remember who it was? What his name was? And he had it was the perfect name because the name had speed in it or fast or something like that. And Ike Taylor was Ike, he's the best, and he's just hold on, everyone. Now we gotta wait. This guy's about to light this place on fire, and the guy ran like a 4.9.
Announcer's jinx.
Exceptional. Exactly.
Announcer's jinx.
So hopefully Sweat will overcome the announcer's jinx.
I gotta get the name. We gotta get the name.
Oh,
at
we'll
some
find
point.
it. Exactly. So you're here watching D linemen. We'll get quarterbacks. Let's start there, Mina, because you obviously know the quarterbacks. What do you think? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it top 5? Is it top 10? How do you see it working out?
I mean, it seems like 4 will likely go in the top half of the draft, which has been a rapidly expanding number, as you know. It started as 2, then it was 3, then it was 3 going in the top 4, top 3. Now it's guys rising. But this happens every year, so you got to kind of wait and see how things shake out. There's also, I think before I have a good sense of where the quarterbacks might go, particularly after the first 3, you got to see how things shake out in free agency. Kirk Cousins, some of the smoke around Justin Fields of Chicago, obviously. But, yeah, there's certainly a lot of hype around these quarterbacks.
Yeah. So Harbaugh comes in, and it's just a whole new vibe, Mina. They have to build this thing differently. There's a lot of positions that I think depth leaves a little bit to be desired. Where do you start when you look at this roster?
Yeah, I was just looking at the team, sort of the depth chart, trying to kind of assess the needs ahead of the draft, especially with such a premium pick. And I came out of it thinking, I want to trade down and stock up. Kind of depends on what people want for 5. You can see if you can get something, get a nice haul for that. But there's a lot of needs. Offensive line, defensive line, both sides of the ball in the trenches, I would say. A cornerback jumps out.
Big time.
Tight end. I'm naming every position,
I think
so
it's
I don't
fair.
want to.
Keep going.
That's probably what I would prioritize.
Yeah. What do you? So, look, people that listen and watch, they are a little more adverse to the idea of investing a bunch of high picks in lines. They don't quite understand that idea, so they get excited about shiny objects and wide receivers and tight ends.
Right.
I'm assuming you've watched some Brock Bowers. Your thoughts on on what he brings and like what would be, because I know like DJ wrote, gosh, the idea of Brock Bowers on the Bengals is so exciting. Kind of your thoughts of what you would invest in him and where you'd like to see him
really
go.
Fascinating prospect because of the position more so than the player, because the player is very, very good, very complete. I don't need to tell you guys that. Probably one of the more watched prospects in the draft because of the big games that he's played in. But just, he's an offensive weapon with the ball in his hands, amazing catch radius, the size of Mars, really sophisticated route runner, really smart player, decent blocker, will probably get better in the NFL. But is that a position that you can spend a top 5 pick on? I think that's an open question. And when people say, well, I don't understand, why does that even matter if he's an offensive weapon? Well, because when you have picks like that, it's not only about the player, obviously you guys know this, but about the value, because the opportunity to get a premium position at a great value is very tantalizing. Also, I would say it is about the position in particular and the specific, because tight ends historically have taken a while to kind of develop in the NFL. And I'll be curious to see if the success of Sam Laporta in Detroit right off the jump maybe helps.
A second-round pick.
Who is not as good a prospect as Bowers, if that actually helps his draft stock. It really just kind of depends on, to me at least, what your needs are, how many of those needs you have. And I think that's where things get tricky for LA, because as we just talked about, there's a lot of needs.
Yeah. The 3 wide receivers at the top, how closely do you have those guys? Obviously, Marvin Harrison seems to be the consensus, but Rome and Nabers kind of nipping at his heels.
I mean, they're fantastic, and I do view it as like a clear top 3. I'm a Huskies fan, so I love it. Odunze, he's so cool because I watch him, and I just think there's no way he can fail in the NFL. Like, to me, his floor is just so high. He's so complete. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend. But I would still have him as wide receiver 3 just because explosiveness is such a premium. Nabers with the ball in his hands is so just unbelievable. And, watching LSU is crazy. But when I had time to kind of go back and watch the tape, I was reminded, don't overthink Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he's just I don't feel like it's extreme to say he's about as good a wide receiver prospect as I've ever seen. And unlike those other 2 receivers, was thrown some pretty difficult balls. Yeah. So, he's a little bit more
bad ball catcher.
Battle tested in that regard, I suppose. I mean, because, Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix are just throwing these beautiful pearls to their guys, and Harrison Jr. was tracking down some real ducks out there. So he's a really cool player.
It's we've been talking about it quite a bit, just because a lot of mock drafts have mocked either Nabers or Odunze to the Chargers, and
really,
you mentioned it. I don't think people realize like what Rome is going to do here, like what the combine is going to look like for him, just because. It's hard when you watch football on TV to realize how big somebody is, especially when they're surrounded by other very large individuals in a huddle, and there's offensive linemen and there's tight ends, and you don't recognize that. Yeah, Rome Odunze is a legit 6'2". He's a legit 215 pounds, and he's probably going to run sub 4.4. Like, he's
really special player.
He's crazy. Like, and it's just so fun. I think that gets lost in translation when you're watching this on TV.
And that's what's so unusual about not just this top 3, but I would say like the top 8 receivers in this class is like we're coming off of so many years where you'd have the guy, there were a lot of undersized receivers. There were receivers who were like big, but maybe not as fast.
Right.
You have so many like true X receivers in this draft. It's it's pretty unprecedented, frankly. But for the Chargers, when you consider again the needs on the roster, and also I think the identity of the coach, Greg Roman coming in, what they imagine they want to do on offense, I'm not sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the defensive line, and right now, as we talk, it's kind of a mystery as to what's going to happen with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of needs at defensive tackle. We've talked about Chris Jenkins. Maybe he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick that the Chargers identify. How do you assess what the Chargers defense is going to look like, and kind of what Jesse Minter can work with up front?
Yeah, love watching Jesse Minter's defense. Part of the reason why I was so excited for my Seahawks to have Mike McDonald as their head coach, obviously the shared DNA there. I think watching those defenses, the things that there's a lot of types of players that jump out. Off-ball linebacker athleticism is really important, as well as smarts, because it's a very complicated defense up front. I think that there are players on the Chargers already who I see fitting in well. Thule, who's obviously so good as a rookie. I'm excited to see like what this defense can do for him. For example, again, give the amount of disguise they employ on the back end. But there's a lot of holes that have to be filled, and I do think that's, outside of the offensive line, is probably what I would prioritize.
Because I think the Seahawks are probably going to go through it to a team intimately. But the idea of ripping a Band-Aid off and just saying, okay, well, Khalil, Joey, Mike, we need to reset. These guys are great at developing. Let's develop some young players. Versus, what if the coaches came to you and said, hey, give us a shot. I know it's not the best idea, but let's push some of this. Give us a shot with Joey, Khalil, Mike. Does that make any sense to you with the cap going up? If Jesse Minter came and said, no, I need two edges. I think we need these guys. Can we make it work?
It would be tricky, I think, honestly. I guess it's, you're kind of looking at four players, the receivers and the edges, you guys in conjunction with each other and seeing if, maybe if we choose to make the sacrifice at receiver instead, we can prioritize edge. And having a young edge, I think, maybe helps
with Thule,
potentially move on that side of the ball. So you're looking at him versus you're looking at, like, Quentin Johnson, you drafted in the first round last year. You say, okay, which of these two players do we think can, like, take the step to compensate for the loss of the veteran? I mean, Mac was fantastic last year.
I know.
So it's like, oh my God, we're really talking about that, and we see how much better this offense is with Mike Williams. But the previous regime left some pretty hard decisions in place.
If you could only keep one, who would you keep?
Out of those four,
Keenan, Mike, Joey, Khalil.
It's really hard. Well, I just don't see how this offense can run without Keenan Allen at the moment. So that would probably be it.
Yeah.
By the way, I was looking down Darunya Wilson.
There it is. The 4'9" man.
Yeah.
Hold on, everybody. This guy's about to light it up now.
There's a run in his name.
Yeah, Darunya. Like a 4'9", I think is what it was.
Staying with the wide receivers, we have talked about the fact that because Justin Herbert's your quarterback, maybe that second tier of wide receivers, like Justin, can just elevate that player, whether it's like a Franklin or a Roman Wilson from Michigan. Where do you kind of fall in that? Like, you got the blue chip guys, the no-doubter, slam dunk Nabers, Roma Dunze, or, hey, we got to address the offensive line early. Yeah. And we can get one of these receivers because it's a deep class.
Sort of like what the Chiefs just did.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because after the Super Bowl, people were like, oh, did the Chiefs show us that, like, wide receiver is not that important? And then obviously everyone was like, it's Patrick Mahomes. But it's also Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And, by the way, the young receiver they drafted last year was really good by the end of the season. So I think you can only go so far in not prioritizing that position because, yes, a quarterback can elevate the receiver, but receiver not only, they have to do so many things right that it's, I don't know. I would not consider that an opportunity to save money just because you got a good quarterback.
Where do you come out on, and this is something that can be sort of popular in college if they recognize in a conference that their window does not look good at that particular time. It's like, you know what, let's just play for 2 years down the road, develop, and this guy will be gone, and they'll be gone, and that's where we're going to take our window. It's not as prevalent in the NFL, but just let's talk both Western divisions, NFC, AFC. Like, what do you think the window is for the 49ers, and what do you think the window is for the Chiefs? Like, how vulnerable, if at all, do you see those two teams to the three that are behind them to knock them off their perch this season or next?
I think I see the Niners being more vulnerable to that than the Chiefs. They don't have that many free agents this year, but in 2025 they have a bunch of guys coming up. At some point they're going to have to make a decision about paying the quarterback. Obviously that's a pretty big advantage for them right now. Whereas, Kansas City just showed us it doesn't really. They've had a lot of picks hit on defense, and some of their signings I think have been very astute. It's just was a very well-built team last year, but I think when you have the quarterback, you always are competing, and your window is never really closed. And then, so when you're talking about a team like LA, where I think the roster has a lot of issues, you don't punt. You just don't. You have to, take some pain and eat your vegetables and address maybe unsexy positions and trade down and all those kinds of things we've been talking about. But when your quarterback is one of the, 5 to 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL, you're always competing.
Is it? Sorry, Chris. Is that because as Chargers people, we go into these seasons, and we go into this year, and we go into last year, and it's like, okay, the Chiefs are vulnerable. And I don't feel like that's a bad assessment. It's like, hey, look, They got rid of Tyreek Hill. It's just we have Derwin James. Focus on Travis Kelce, and this offense can be had. I just feel like these last 2 years, we've looked at the AFC and looked at the Bills and looked at the Ravens and looked at what we've had with the Chargers, and I can't figure out why it continues to break the way it does for the Chiefs, and they end up just kind of doing what we all think they're not going to be capable to do this year. Is it as simple as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes?
It's been different stories, different years. I think this year, ultimately, the coach and the quarterback, probably the most important thing. But the fact that they did hit on so many of those pieces on defense. We talk about the draft and draft picks acquired and the Tyreek Hill trade that turned into some of the young, excellent secondary.
Right.
Karlaftis is really good. But then when you look at some of the free agent signings they made, Justin Reed, for example, Drew Tranquil was really good for them, right? And you see, and I think coaching also factors into that as well. Having a defensive coordinator who's like probably should be a head coach and has been your defensive coordinator and has developed these young players is also a massive edge. They have so much continuity, there on that side of the ball. But yeah, I think it's just a very well constructed roster, and then it helps, of course, that you have two of the greats.
Yes.
Staying in the division, obviously you got Mahomes and Herbert on one side, and then we don't know what the heck the Broncos and the Raiders are going to do at quarterback. How do you view this division, specifically what Denver and Vegas may do to kind of change the complexion of their offense and their franchise quarterback?
Yeah, big question mark with the quarterback position, so it's kind of hard to even get a feel for how competitive they'll be. But I think they're teams that were both sort of trending in the right direction last year.
Yeah.
The Raiders defense, I thought, was playing really well down the stretch, and still has to add a lot of talent on that side of the ball. Good skill players. Offensive line's not too bad. Denver, again, some of them, the turnaround that they had was turnover luck and things kind of, and I think some of the trends from the first part of the season were unsustainable for them. But very good head coach, obviously, Peyton. It feels like if either of those teams had if either of them had a Herbert, they would immediately
ascend.
Honestly, be better than the Chargers at this point, probably. But that's the odds of that are low for you guys. So I think the question is okay, well, if they get that next tier, how competitive are they? I think that's where you're looking at how much does the quarterback matter versus the roster, and I don't know. These AFC West teams all play each other hard, though. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. They typically split, except for the Chiefs, who win all the matchups. But otherwise, the other teams tend to split with each other. I'm going to go a little off the menu here, and I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe it's just my background in a particular previous career that I had that leads me to ask you this, and I don't think I ever have before. You have Wowie Zowie behind you for all of your at-home appearances. I don't know if there's just such a strong connection to that one pavement record that it has to stay there and hasn't rotated. But if it did rotate, if you were forced to take it down, hey, we've seen enough of this. Let's replace
put up some new art.
Put up another
just
album.
Just like Texans Radio, they're breaking down.
They're breaking down. You got to take Wowie Zowie down.
I actually thought about replacing it because I have a custom painting. It's a painting of American Water, which is an album that I like a lot from the Silver Jews.
Okay. That
the artist who made the album cover painted it for me, and I was thinking about replacing Wowie Zowie.
So there we go.
But I've had Wowie Zowie for so long.
I know.
And honestly, probably once, at least maybe twice a week, I hear from someone who's like, why is there a Pavement album on an ESPN background? It just cracks me up every time.
Yeah.
So
instead of your own book behind you, which apparently is a very popular path.
Nah.
What?
I'm not going for that.
Check out my book. It's behind me. So is this award that I got 10 years ago. I'm sorry.
Mina,
I don't have any of those.
What's the rest of the week look like for you guys, NFL Live?
Yeah, we're live from Stadium today, tomorrow. It's kind of the beginning for us of all of this. So it's our kind of first crack at talking about the quarterbacks who I've been desperately cramming over the last week, the beginning of draft season. So I'm pumped. This is one of my favorite.
I know. That's why we asked you to join us. It's the best.
It's cool for me too personally because I like college football. I'm a Huskies fan, so I've seen these players. But there's a lot of players I didn't watch during the regular season. So when I get a chance, I'm like, guys, oh my God. I was just having lunch by I don't know my point. and Cooper DeJean walked in. I didn't watch Iowa because everybody's like, this is so boring. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Holy crap, that kid is good.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a good player.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
He is a really, really good zone corner. And he walks in, I'm just like, oh, my God. Like, yeah, I just watched,
I know that dude.
5-year games.
I want to ask you this because I asked Nate Tice this. If Penix had clean medical, where would he be in your eyes?
I would, if he had a clean medical, I would view him probably like end of first, maybe like around there. That and age is a little. This is another thing that's horrible. Draft season. I'm like 24. Send him to the retirement home, folks. Right?
He's old.
It's so crappy. I think with Penix, who I love as a college player. My question is like what we saw from. It's kind of similar to what they're not similar players, but it was a similar discourse around C.J. Stroud. What we saw from him in the Texas game, and C.J. Stroud in Georgia is what I mean. Where he was like so evasive versus pressure, stepping up in the pocket, firing over the middle of the field. Is that who he can be as a quarterback consistently? Because a lot of his production in college was, bombs outside the numbers, screens, and my God, that guy throws beautiful go balls. But for me, when I'm thinking about success in the NFL, you got to use the middle of the field. You got to be able to play under pressure. And he did that in that game. So I think what I want to see is, okay, can he do that, at the next level? I'm not so sure. I hope so. He's a great guy.
Did you fall into the trap with the rest of the Huskies fans when all the speculation was Dan Lanning was going to Alabama, of poking the bear of your southern neighbors, like, you're going to lose your guy.
Yeah, well.
And then all of a sudden, there it is, right in your lap.
Yeah, I know. It was a real roller coaster for me because I like I said, I love this Husky season so much, and I'm so high in DeBoer.
Yeah.
But he's dead to me now.
Oh, really?
And
I mean, you can understand a guy doesn't want to go to the Big Ten.
I'm kidding.
I know.
But he is dead to me.
But a lot of Washington fans don't. They're like, how could you leave? It's
the getting grubbed though for the Seahawks really softened the blow. So I was like, all right. So I have some friends who are Bama fans. I was just like roasting them because I was like, you can have DeBoer. I'm excited to see what Ryan Grubb's offense looks like in the NFL. I'm really intrigued because very different circumstances from Washington.
With Geno or with
Geno?
You're good with Geno.
I'm good with Geno. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like a.
You're ride or die Geno.
I'm on Geno Mountain.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised by
you and Greg Rosenthal, Geno Mountain.
I know. Greg is the mayor of Geno Mountain.
Our guy Chenna at Seattle too.
We love Chenna.
We
miss Chenna.
Chenna's a good player.
Yeah.
Hope he comes back healthy.
Well, have a great week. We
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
you stopping by.
Thank you, Mina.
Can't wait to see what you do in the draft.
Exactly.
Trade down.
That's the plan.
Yep.
Just
Thank you.
That's
the consensus.
Keep telling people there's 4 quarterbacks
Just
that are going
down.
to the top 5. That's what we need.
Just always say trade down.
Exactly.
Love Mina. What's funny is that she sits down and then she gets up and there's like 5 or 6 other teams that are coming after her.
That's why I felt bad. I mean, we're set up right when you walk in the door, and I was like, just walk in the door, sit down, and walk out. And she's just too nice. She's not going to say no, but that's fine. I mean, like the one thing that I take away from today is it's now becoming pretty much just universal. I don't feel like we've really had anybody say, hey, you got to stick and pick at 5. No. Mina said it. Nate said it. Figure out a way to trade down. Just pile up picks. And as Mina, run, Mina. They're piranhas. They will chew you to the bone. They will chew you to the bone. That you got to get out of 5. That's just with a staff that's so good at developing players and has proven that at Michigan. I don't think there's any question that's why so many of these people are saying get out of 5, get out of 5, trade down, and work your way out.
That's been the consensus. This is hilarious, by the way.
I feel so bad. Exactly. It's all right.
Oh.
Yeah. What's that?
Just do it again.
Oh. That looks more like you than that one. That won't get you as many places, Mina.
Be evicted.
Exactly. There we go. All right. You get to see what it looks like live.
Are we?
Oh, that's it. We're still rolling. That's how we're making the sausage, man. You're seeing how it is made.
Is this live?
Live. Is this live? All right, let's start it over from the top there. All right, everybody, let's go. Let's go right. Poor Mina. I was just reading liners.
Let's do the.
We're good. We're good.